Today we are going to do Leetcode, add two numbers, and kotlin. So for this questions, you're given two non-empty linked lists representing two non-negative integers. The digits are stored in reverse order, and each of their nodes contain a single digit. Add the two numbers and return the sum as a linked list. You may assume the two numbers do not contain any leading zero except the number zero itself. So here's an example. You have two necklaces. One is 2, 4, 3, and then the other one is 5, 6, 4. Once you add them together, it becomes 7. This becomes 10, but the 1 you carry over to over here. Then 3 plus 4 plus that carry over 1 equals to 8. So you get 708. Here's the input where L1 equals 243, L2 equals 564, and output equals 708. And because it's in reverse order, as mentioned here, it show is actually 342 plus 465, which equals to 807. And by having a reverse order, it actually makes it a little bit easier for us to do the carryover because we could calculate uh the last digit first and then bring over the carryover for the next iteration and stuff. So to get started, um, I'm going to create a heft for return value list no of, I'm going to just give it 0 for now, and then we're going to create another no using bars so I could reassign it and stuff. Equals to the head. And because L1 and L2 are in parameter, we can't really use that, so I'm going to just reassigning it to a var instead to reuse. And get started, I want to start a while loop where L1 does not equals to no or L2 does not equals to no. So if there are values inside L1 or L2, I want to go inside this while loop. And first step is to get the val of the no, and then we could start adding it. So val L1 val, giving it name. L1 val equals L1 dot val, and because L1 can be null in this case, we need question mark, and then I also want to set default value to 0 if it is null in case I need to add it. So the reason for this is that if we have another value in front of the 4, so let's say no, number 2 is 1465, I want to be able to add a 1 with the 0 and maybe with any carryover as well. So setting that, and then same thing goes for the L2 val. Um, we'll do the same format, and then we could finally start adding them together. So then I want to create another val called sum. So the sum of the two digits would equals to L1 val plus L2 val, and then you want to um, next step, we want to calculate the carryover and then also the last digit of it in case there is a carryover. So we could do val carry over equals to um, sum divided by 10. So because all these are integers, when you divide by 10, let's say if it's above 10, it will return a 1 or return a 0, and we can use it for next one. And then we also want to get the last digit, which would be the sum of ma 10. So, whatever you module 10, if it's 15, it will return 5. And then 5 would be the value we want to stores, or in this case, 2 plus 5 will equal 7. So we want to store that into L3. So I want to do L3 dot next, which equals to a new list node of last digit. And I forgot to mention that carryover, we should actually move this before the while loop. starting at 0. So that way when we go to the next iteration, let's say when we get to over here where 3 plus 4 and then we need to plus a carry over 1, we have access to it. And because we set it after we added from the previous iteration, um, we can add it here. So Um, when this go to the second loop where we have 4 plus 6 plus a carryover of 0 from the previous one, this becomes 10 and we want to set the carryover for the next one to 1. So when it goes to the third iteration, we have 3 plus 4 plus 1, which becomes 8. And there's also another edge case where at the end, if you have something like 3 plus 7, and equals 10, we would actually want to set the carryover to the last value. So I'm going to just put a to do here to set carry over if L1 and L2 is null and carry over is 1. Okay. So now going back into the code, since we handle the carryover scenario, we have L3 equals L3.next equals list null of that, and we need to move everything to the next iteration. So technically L1 would equals to L1.next. But because L1 can be null, we actually wanted to just a no check right here where we put a question mark. So if it's null, it would remain null. So for the case where L2 have extra value, L1 is null right here. It would stay null. And then same thing for L2 would be the same scenario. And now we need to move L3. So right now L3 is this null of 0. And then L3.next equals the last digit. So in this first case is 7. And we just want to move L3 to also L3.next, which would be 7. So that way we could continue the iteration. And then once this is done, go and do it 3 times. We should have head with 0, head.next would equal to 7, and then 0 again for L3.next, and then we move the carry over to the last iteration, and 3 plus 4 equals 7 plus the 1 equals 8, and then store the last digit, and then finally L3.next equals to 8. And at the end, we do want to return head.next, so that way it returns the first no after head, which in most cases would be 7. Or I guess it could also be no if we never go through this while loop. Finally, I did have a to do to set carryover if L1 and L2 is no and carryover is 1. So we know that when we leave the while loop, L1 and L2 are both actually no in order to leave it. So this case is satisfied if we put the if statement here. And all we have to do is just set if carryover equals 1. Then we want to set L3.next to less null of carryover. And then that should satisfy the condition. Next up, I'm going to just run the code. Uh, sorry about that. Next up, going to run the code. I just had to sign in. And our answer is accepted. Now if I submit this, it's accepted.